President Burnett to give us the opening remarks. But before then, I would like to ask Dr. Bud to give us the opening prayer. Dr. Bud, you may be on mute or we can't hear you. Can anybody hear Dr. Bud?
No.
Oh, Dr. Bud, we can't hear your prayer.
I'll unmute him. He's not muted, so there could be audio.
Audio. So try to fix your phone. Let's try. Ms. Stinson, can you please lead us in the opening prayer, please?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Most gracious and abundant God, creator and ruler of all things, we want to say thank you. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your peace. Thank you for your comfort. We pray, Lord God, that as we have come together today for the work of the University of Huston-Tillotson University, we are asking, Lord God, that you would be with us, that you would guide us, that you would allow us to come together in collaboration and collaborative spirit, that we may uplift and edify our students and be here to just do what it is that we need to do for the purpose and the mission of our university. We thank you for all hearts and minds that are open to hear and to receive and to be receptive to move the university forward. And we also, Lord God, just want to pray a special prayer for our students at this time. We know, Lord God, that they're, and our staff and faculty, because we know, Lord, that this is a trying time. And we've had some cases of COVID and we've had some other things to go on, Lord God, because life has not stopped. And so we're asking that you would be and guide each and every one of our students, our faculty and our staff, give them the grace, give them the strength, give them the ability, Lord God, to accomplish and to do and to exceed, just to get around and to get over and to get through these trying times. Give them what they need, provide what they need through the people that need to help and to assist. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Stinson. Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Vanderpoy. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I asked Dr. Vanderpoy to give me a few minutes on his agenda this morning for the retreat. I'm attempting to take every opportunity that I can to let people know how much I appreciate everyone's work in a trying time such as this. Ms. Stinson called it out in her prayer about everything that we are facing as an institution and encouraging us to thanking and showing my gratefulness, and in the next breath, encouraging us to stay encouraged and to stay focused and to keep our mind embedded in the roots of this institution, which are faith-based. Often in my speeches, when I talk about the university, I talk about that we're a faith-based institution. And sometimes in our daily walks, I think we move away from that. And that's where we draw on our faith. And if you process just who we are as an institution, not as individuals, but who we are as an institution, we were founded 10 years after Juneteenth at a time when for Black people to learn was illegal. And our people were brutalized when they were attempting to teach themselves to read, but they persisted through that. There are tales of people actually having their hands cut off when to punish them, to make an example, because they could not learn how to read. It was just that brutal. And we often gloss over that and we forget about the courage, the fortitude, and the compassion that has to go in running an institution like Huston-Tillotson University. And we're living in an age where it's not brutal from a physical perspective, but I see it on a day-to-day basis of the challenge that we have as a historically Black college to get people to invest in us and believe in us. So I shift my lens to an encouraging lens And for those of you who've been in my office, and I think the majority of the people on the call have been in my office, I have a picture of Mary Branch in my office, who was the first president at a time where women were not presidents, let alone Black people as presidents. And when I get discouraged, it's a portrait, so her eyes follow me wherever I go. It's one of those eerie things. And when I get discouraged, I look at her face and I think, if Mary Branch could do what she did, because she moved the place to a position of accreditation, she vastly improved the grounds. She worked very hard to improve the morale of the campus. She was one of the presidents that was encouraging the merger through the challenging fiscal times. The list goes on and on and on of Mary Branch's presidency. So when I look at her and I think, if she could do what she did, she didn't even have the internet. She didn't have Zoom. She didn't have the advantage of all of the technologies that I have at my fingertips. She didn't have the size team that I have. I could go on. I mean, there's maybe 50 to 100 things that she did not have that I have. And all that I need to do is just muster up just some of the compassion and some of the, what I really consider a fight for justice through education. Then I can make this campus move to another level. So my goal is to infuse that kind of thinking in everybody on campus, because this is a very trying time for us. We're fighting two epidemics. Yesterday I sat on a panel that I'll talk about in a moment, and one of my sister presidents called it twin tragedies: the tragedy of COVID-19 and the tragedy of civic unrest still in 2020 in our nation. So we sit at a position of addressing both of them. And that's encouraging our students to stay focused, to step out there and be bold, to touch them. Our students cannot afford to take a gap year. This is to their advantage in many ways. It's not seen that way, but it's time for them to really step back and get engaged in their education. And that's the message that we have to send. That's the narrative that we need across the campus, that this is hard. It's very hard. It's just extremely hard. Hard sounds like a small word to describe, the situation that we're in. We're having to wear masks. You look like you're going on a bank heist when you're just simply trying to go to the grocery store. We're worried about our families. We're worried about ourselves. We're worried about just what's going to happen to our nation. So all of those things are compounded, and whether we realize it or not, the subconscious is working on that. So we want to give that narrative to continue to encourage our students, and to continue to provide them with excellence and with best practice, and to be extremely innovative to do that, because we do have all of these technologies at our fingertips. We do have the compassion that we have. We have all the right tools as an institution to really address the needs of our students. The challenge is how hard people want to work at making that happen, whether it be whatever capacity I'm in, whether I'm over the writing center, whether I'm in the adult degree program, whether I'm in the library, wherever I am, whatever my role is, whether I'm the dean of students, the director of admissions, what am I doing in my space, the president, what am I doing in my space to continue to move the institution forward with that same kind of compassion, resilience, commitment, and what we talk about, grit. Do I really have that in what I bring to the table as I take Huston-Tillotson to another level? Because that's how we will sustain the institution moving forward. That's the bottom line. And that's really not about resources. That resilience, that heart, that commitment to being innovative and creative comes from within. Nobody buys that. That's just what you bring to the table, and as the person who you are. That's what that means. So when we have these retreats and advances, that's an opportunity to learn something new, to share with our colleagues, to be vulnerable, to open ourselves up to improving ourselves, because as we all grow as individuals, the institution naturally grows. So I sat on a webinar last night. An organization that I'm in had a national webinar, and I was invited to be on the panel. And they had 7 students, Black college students from across the nation speak. And they affirmed something that I have felt, but did not, I felt it, but I didn't have data. But actually it's being affirmed again from the results of the student survey that we sent out. And it's that the biggest challenge our students are having right now is fighting their own fears and their own mental well-being. So when we think about how we're going to address students and how we're going to communicate to students, we want to be attentive to that. We want to embrace that. I mean, like 7 students from across the nation, from Morgan State to Tennessee State to Tuskegee. There were 7 Black colleges. I can't think of all of them right now. And every single student there, when they were asked what's the biggest impact that COVID-19 has had on them, specifically with going online, because it was about online learning, every student talked about, from their own perspective, their mental well-being and their communication back to their campus and feeling connected to their campus. And students talked about being called by faculty, being called by administrators, and how that eased their souls, and how they got a personal something from someone. So we've been pushing that across our campus, but that will not happen unless the individuals on the campus buy into embracing students and touching students, using the innovation, being creative, being bold, being willing to get into the good fight to be able to move the institution forward one student at a time. Students talked about one student's dad had COVID-19 and was in the hospital for 2 months, and he was trying to do his work, his studies, but he was so worried about his dad, and his campus was embracing him through that moment, and that's what encouraged him. Another student talked about how she was a nursing student, and she couldn't do part of her work because all the hospitals shut down, but her campus used its weight. She went to Charles Drew. So her campus used its weight to get her into a hospital so she could do a practicum. And she attributed that to the fact that her campus looked out for her. So every student had a challenge for their mental well-being. And then to address that was something that their campus had. And then one student did not have a positive experience, feeling like their campus had shut them out. They had not heard from them. So it affirmed in my mind, my soul, what I knew. And we're small enough to be able to realistically do that. We can't just talk about it. We can actually be about it. And we can actually do that. So for those that are spearheading those efforts, we have to support them. And for those who have an opportunity to spear those kinds of efforts, I encourage you to do that, because you can do those kinds of things in your own small sphere of influence or your own big sphere of influence, however you want to look at it here on the campus. So I appreciate everyone's work. It's a lot going on the campus. We have a summer school. We don't know it because we don't see students walking around, but we actually have a summer school going on with a record enrollment over last year and the year before. And we're now preparing for the fall, and we cannot afford to let our students slip through the cracks because they won't come back. So we want to make sure that we build this spider web to touch them as many ways as we can, so that we can keep them in that spider web. So the few minutes I have left, I want to see if anybody had any comments or questions or thoughts of me before Dr. Vanderpoort kicks me off. No one has any questions, comments, thoughts? This is not normally a quiet group. Did Dr. Vanderpoort say don't talk to me?
No. Dr. Brenner, and this is, I mean, it's related, but it's unrelated. I just want to see if you'll be available sometime this afternoon about that one student I emailed you about that still has a concern about her diploma.
Okay, yeah, I did not see the email yet, Ms. Jensen. Okay. I will look at it, and yes, I'm available. I have a meeting at 1 o'clock, so I have something between now and 1, so anytime after 2, just call me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Burnett, this is Downey. I don't really have much time, but I would like to reach out to students sometimes, like send them a card or something like that. How anybody have any suggestions how you can do that?
Send them a card?
Send them a card or something.
That's easy. we can request students through the registrar's office, a listing of, Dr. Vanderpoy has that handy. Miss Yan can run that report. Want to do a target area, she can run a report from their home addresses of record, and that's easy. Miss Yan can easily extract that information out.
And is it okay to do that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I encourage that. I encourage that. And that's what I'm saying. The more we can touch them, the better. Because if you think about your own, the more we can touch students and let them know we're thinking of them, the better. It's just no different than us sending them a holiday card, Christmas card.
And if I may, Dr. Burnett, also add to that, with the Fall 2020 retention initiative that we are doing, there is opportunity. I'm not certain, Dr. Downing, what you said about your time, but there are some academic related concerns that I will be pushing over to Dr. Vanderpoy, so you could possibly assist him with that. That includes students' telephone numbers, so that they can contact them by phone.
And Dr. Burnett, I came in late because I was having some technical problems, but I do see this as a very good opportunity for us to reach out to students who have not completed and are in different geographical locations other than Central Texas right now, because they have an opportunity to pick up hours this fall, maybe toward degree completion. I'm working with one student in Houston right now, and I have some others that I'm going to reach out to that were former advisees of mine. I don't know if we touched on this before I was able to join.
We did not, good to see you, Dr. Hirsch. We did not touch on it before you were able to join. However, you should have a conversation with Dr. Vanderpoy, because Mr. Knox, actually with our guest Trellis, they are working with our partners to identify those students that stopped out and had bills, and how we can work with them to re-engage them. So that is an ongoing activity that you should, I think we go fast alone, but we go farther together. So when we have these initiatives, I encourage us to work together so that we can all be on one page. So Dr. Vanderpoy can give you more information about that, but that is an ongoing initiative that enrollment management is working with the business office on, identifying those students. And once again, once we identify those students, if they could hear from their dean or a former faculty member, that makes a personal connection.
Right.
But we have to lean in. We have to make it happen. We can't talk about it. We got to do it. We got to actually do it. We got to actually do the work, because we have all kind of lists and all kind of data, but then it's a human being picking it up and activating it and making it happen and actually doing the work. We do talking, but then we are not working. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Vanderpoy. Thank you, Academic Affairs. I look forward to seeing you all in this whole Brady Bunch scenario. Those of you who are my age remember that whole Brady Bunch scenario. This is exactly what this looks like. I appreciate all of you, and have a great restful weekend. Thank you, Dr. Vanderpoy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morton.
Thank you.
Dr. V, you're muted.
Yes. Hello again. I was saying that was a good opening of our retreat by the president, and so I'll have some comments about that later on. Not to just to keep on schedule. You can see on the screen that we have our three guests: Mr. Smith, Ms. Stiles, and Ms. Megani. And so we'll just go along right now to Ms. Stiles. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday.
Yes, happy Friday. Good morning. We just about 5 minutes of a time. You know, when the president have the mic, she has the mic. So sorry, we are 5 minutes behind. So please, you can take over now.
Okay, thank you so very much. Again, happy Friday, everyone, and we're very excited to be here today to speak with you about effective communication. And I just want to give you a little background about myself, and then I will introduce my two colleagues. I'm Teresa Tyus, and I am your institutional support consultant. I've been in the higher education arena, I guess, more than 26 years now. I started when I was 2. I've had the privilege of working with many colleges here locally in Texas as well as nationally. And my passion is to educate students and families on the importance of higher learning. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Sana Magani, and she can introduce herself, and then Steve Smith. So glad to be here.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sana Magani, and I am the program manager for the virtual student support program here at Trellis with Project Success. We have partnered with, your colleagues across the campus on various initiatives. I'm excited to be here this morning and to talk about what does supporting students in the virtual space look like, as well as what does effective communication, whether it's via email, text message, phone, social media look like. Also, just a little bit about my background. My background is in student success and student affairs. I have worked at various institutions, but particularly in supporting first generation and low income college students. So I'm excited to be here today.
Okay. Good morning to our colleagues at Huston-Tillotson. We're, as Teresa and Sana said, we're delighted to be here this morning, as we are always delighted to talk to you and to work with you. And as we came in at the very the end of Dr. Burnett's comments, but she mentioned some of the work we're doing, for example, to help students who did not finish come back to school, and that's just one of the many things that we're working with Huston-Tillotson on through our relationship with Trellis Company and the federal Project Success, which is what we're doing with Huston-Tillotson, as well as 39 other colleges and universities in 5 states. So this morning, we are going to do a very brief presentation on 2 topics, customer service and effective student communication. So we'll start with customer service. Again, my name is Steve Smith, and I am the Director of Student Success at Trellis Company. I've been in higher ed for about 31 years. I developed these concepts that you're going to hear today, having been an administrator of several colleges and working with students for many, many years. And I delivered this presentation. I think I delivered it 25 times to Project Success institutions last year alone. At some point, maybe we'll come onto the campus and we'll do the full 2-hour session that it usually runs to. Today, we're going to do a very brief overview of it, an introduction. And if you want to, we'll expand it to a more conversational level at some future point. So let's go ahead to the next slide, Sana. Okay, so what do we mean by customer service? What does it mean at Huston-Tillotson? We'll talk briefly about that, and then I'm going to give you 5 simple principles for customer service. And these may be somewhat surprising. This is not one of those deals where I'm going to tell you, smile while you're talking on the phone or answer your emails in, 24 hours, because, those principles are rules and they may or may not apply to your specific situation. What I'm hoping to give you as takeaways are flexible principles that you can apply to every situation in which you're dealing with students. Okay, next slide. Okay, what do we mean by customer service? So first of all, I would like to ask everyone just to think about customer service and where you have seen it in the last 24 to 48 hours. Now, I understand that you're probably not going out and interacting with the world like you once did, but you may be experiencing customer service or remember it. Where did you see it really? And you said to yourself, inherently you said, yeah, that was good customer service, or that missed the mark. I deliver the program many, many times in all kinds of states. And I don't know if anyone here would agree with this, but I will tell you that very often, when I deliver the program and I ask people, where have you seen good customer service? People will say things like Chick-fil-A. Now, I personally have never eaten at Chick-fil-A, so I haven't experienced, but I'll tell you what, I hear it all the time. They greet you when you walk in the door. They make you feel good. and they manage the weight and they manage the line and things like that. I hear these kind of principles. I also hear people say on the downside, sometimes people will say things like McDonald's. Now, again, I'm not trying to suggest that these are your ideas of good and bad customer service, but people will say, you know, I go in there and I waited online for 10 minutes and they were out of French fries, or, you know, something like that. And what's interesting about those two examples, I'll give you two others that I hear quite often. I go in, when I do this in Alabama, you know, when I do this in Alabama, there's a grocery store chain down there that people visit, quite frankly, and they often mention that as very good customer service. Then they'll mention something like Walmart is very bad customer service. What's interesting about all these examples, Chick-fil-A versus McDonald's, or Publix, which is their grocery store, versus Walmart, is that they're exactly the same types of businesses. Chick-fil-A and McDonald's are the same business. They cook food before you arrive and they give it to you when you ask for it. It's not custom, it's not ordered by you, it's the same exact business, but how can one do it so excellently and one fall short? And that's the difference between customer service. Again, I don't know that those would be your examples, but those are ones that I hear a lot. So think about that in terms of what is the difference maker between one guy and the next guy who are doing really the same thing, and one guy or entity makes the customer feel so good at the same thing while the other one falls short. How can that be? Okay, what's the next slide? Okay, so what do we mean by customer service in higher education? First of all, what we mean is a set of principles. Go ahead and advance that slide, Sana. It's a set of agreed values of how we can treat students consistently to help the student succeed. The whole point of customer service in higher ed is to help the student get what he or she came for, to help them get through successfully. That is the whole reason we're doing it. What we don't mean, go ahead and advance the slide 2 times, Sana, is we don't mean a set of new retail principles. We're not trying to turn Huston-Tillotson into the, you know, Chick-fil-A of colleges or anything like that. We're not trying to put in fancy new business concepts. This is all very simple. What can we do in our daily actions to help the students get what they came for and leave with what they came for? Okay, next slide. So, customer service is important because it helps students stay in school with less effort. We don't want them to work too hard. We want them to enjoy their class, get their lessons. We don't want them to have to worry about how do I navigate this experience. Helps them stay, helps them understand what's going on. Here's the thing. When we give good customer service to the students, it makes our jobs as administrators easier at the same time. And I will mention this briefly at the very end, but the more customer service we provide and the more customer service culture we have, the easier it will be for us to do our own jobs, and we will feel the benefit in return. Okay, next slide. So, tell me if you have any of these issues at Huston-Tillotson. People saying, I want to talk to the president. Does that happen? You're sending out clear instructions, but nobody follows them. Does that happen? You take a look at the instructions you're sending out and you don't know what you're talking about either. Does that ever happen? That's happened to me. Great students are leaving and you don't know why. Students never ask for your help. Believe me, in a good customer service situation, students will ask for help. Students don't ask for help, that's a bad sign. If the staff don't work together behind the scenes, you cannot have good customer service. In other words, there's no such thing as good customer service to students with the staff not working together behind the scenes. The two things go hand in hand. They're part of the same package. All right? Sometimes students will talk to the president, but if it happens every day, or they talk to Dr. Van de Puy, and that happens every day, that's a bad sign. Once in a while, it happens. Sometimes, you know, you'll get somebody, I don't like the food in the dorm, I got to talk to the president. But most people, that's not what they want to do. They want to talk to whoever works there, who's ever standing and helping them at that moment. The escalation happens when the system's breaking down. And students not leaving and not returning, bad sign. Students never asking for help, bad sign. Next slide. Okay, so we don't have time to go around and ask how it's going at Huston-Tillotson, but I challenge you to think, where do you say, you know, we do a good job of this at Huston-Tillotson? Where are there some areas we say, you know, we work together. We work together behind the scenes to help the students. We really do a good job. And where do we not do a good job? You know, where do we fall short at Huston-Tillotson? Are there a couple of forms out there that maybe students don't fill out correctly year after year because they don't understand them? Are there a couple of times that maybe we don't answer the phone when it rings, or we don't call them back? Are there some times that we say we're going to have office hours, but nobody's there when the student arrives at those times? Do those things ever happen to Huston-Tillotson? You know, I don't know if they do, but they're common ways that, you know, we might fall short at a college. So think about that. Are there little things that we do, promises that we didn't keep, or things that make it harder on the student than they should have? Are there ways in which we say, that's not my office, go talk to that guy over there, and then you move them on, and you wash your hands, but the student wanders off and you don't know what's going to happen next? Does that ever happen in Huston-Tillotson? I ask. Think about that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here I'm going to give you 5 principles. I'll walk through them in general, and then I'll go through them very, very briefly in this short amount of time we have left. So next slide. So here, 5 principles, and these I've developed over years and years and years of dealing with. I was the president of a culinary college myself. I taught my own staff about this. Over and over, I saw that if you follow these 5 things, you can get the students to relate to you and you relate to the students. So 1, follow your own rules. I'll tell you what that means in a second. 2, if a student comes to you, own it. 2, don't be afraid to say no. Caveat, no has to be the only answer. 4, don't match emotions with a student. And 5, see what the student sees. And that one sounds, wow, throwaway, but I contend that's the hardest part. Rules, what are rules? Okay, follow your own rules. A rule can be your actual rule book, your syllabus, or things like that, but it's anything you say, this is the way we do it at Huston-Tillotson. So your catalog, your hours of operation, your signage, your phone number, your school directory. The whole point of rules is because the student who arrives at Huston-Tillotson does not know how Huston-Tillotson works until we tell him. He doesn't know how Huston-Tillotson works until we tell him how it works. And we tell him by our rules. We say, here's who you call for this issue. Here's how you pay your bill. Here's the key to your dorm. Here's when class begins. Here's when it ends. Here's how you make your grades. Here's how we're going to assess you. Here's when you can go to the dining hall. Here's when you can't go to the dining hall. All of these things are our rules. But we have to follow them ourselves. What if we say, call this number, and it ring, 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 ring? Now remember, the student didn't know about that number until we told her about that number. We told her, call that number for help, and then we don't answer it. So we're not following our own rules. And there's a breakdown. Because we told her, this is how you move through Huston-Tillotson University. And then if we don't live up to it ourselves, then what? She's lost. It's disorganized. And she doesn't know what to do. And then she has the sense that I don't know how to interact. Because they told me to do it this way, and they don't do it themselves. That's what I mean by follow your own rules. It is so critical. Can there be exceptions? Yes, sometimes there are exceptions, but exceptions need to be transparent. You need to be able to say, I made this exception and willing to tell anyone in the world why you made it, because it's not based on personalities or fear or relationships. It's based on the right thing to do. And sometimes that happens, but be willing to say it to anyone who be very transparent, and then that continues the system of trust. Okay, next slide. 2, own it. If they come to you, own it. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have the technique to solve it, but you can own the question. You can say, you know what? I hear you. I work here. I'm taking you to where you need to go. I'm taking you to the next level. If you know, that's an issue need to be solved by our housing office. I'm going to show you where they are. You don't hear back from them, you let me know. You still have problems, come to me. It's very different than pointing and saying that way and then washing your hands of them. Owning it means when they come to you, you see it through, you treat them the way they really want to be treated because you work there. They don't know our org chart, nor should they. They came to you, you own it. Next slide. 3, you can say no. You have to say no sometimes. But here, have you ever had this experience? You hear the word no, but you know for a fact that they're telling you no, and it's not the only answer. They're telling you no because lunch has started, or they want to go home, or they don't feel like dealing with you. Say no if you have to, but only when no is the only answer there is. Otherwise, buy for time, wait. A real no is a gift, but a no out of any other reason, the student knows the difference. 4, next slide, is my only don't do, but I tell you, I've seen this mistake many times. Matching emotions with a student, especially anger. Students will sometimes get anger out of frustration. And then what happens? The administrator wants to save face because we're humans. People come to us in anger, our natural reaction is to act back. Save face. Don't let this person show disrespect to me. But that's not our role. We have to remain objective about that situation and not match that emotion. Because the second we match emotion with a student, we've left our position as a person who works at Huston-Tillotson and entered into an interpersonal relationship with that person. And that's not the role that we're playing. We're playing the role of a person who works at Huston-Tillotson to solve problems, not who's going to win this battle. And I've seen that. You've probably seen it a million times. You lose all power the second you match emotion with a student. So avoid this and go into it self-consciously because it's natural to match emotion. It's part of life, but we have to avoid it. And number 5, finally, see what the student is seeing. See what the student is seeing. And this is hard to do because remember, you've worked there. We've all worked there 20 years. We know how it works. But the student doesn't know how it works. And the language we use and the jargon we use and the forms that we use. What is the student seeing? And I tell you this, you've had this experience yourself because you've gone to Dr. A and you've gone to Dr. B. And Dr. A is the one who reads off your chart and a list of tests and a list of technical terms, and you leave and saying, God, I don't know I don't know whether I have a chance or not. But Dr. B is the one who sits down and uses your own language to explain to you what's going on. Plain words in your terms, and you leave understanding. You know Dr. B knows more than that, but Dr. B doesn't use his language to tell you what's going on. Dr. B uses your language to tell you what's going on, and that's the difference. See what the student sees and talk to them that way. Finally, the compounding effect. I will tell you this. When you have a customer service system that works, good things start happening that you didn't even expect. I was the president of Le Cordon Bleu College here in Austin for several years, and I will tell you that I had discipline problems at one point. I had students doing writing on the restroom walls and little fights in class and little things like that. But once we started a system of customer service, we got our forms in order, we started answering our phone, we stopped matching emotions, all these other little problems went away with them. And these weren't even the problems I was intending to solve by customer service. But the truth is that when I had a system of customer service, the students responded in kind and gave back to me their own kind of service, and it made our own jobs easy. Next slide. Okay. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Sana Magani, who will take it to the next. Thank you for your time, and hopefully one day I will come and we'll do a long version of this and we'll talk it out. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve. And I did want to mention that if we're short on time, but if you had any questions or any thoughts, you could chat them privately to Steve or send them in the Zoom chat here and he can address them. Or we can follow up with you one-on-one via email or schedule some time with you and your internal team as well. So just wanted to throw that out there in case that might be helpful for any of our participants today. So my role on the team is to talk more about strategic communication planning. And so as I understand it, there are various units represented in today's meeting. but we're working together collectively to make sure that we have one communication strategy. We have one kind of streamlined, comprehensive, coordinated effort where we reach out to students, not just students who need our help, but also all students so that we can keep them on track for persistence, and we can make sure that they're on a path to degree completion. So again, we don't have a lot of time. Just like Steve has a 2-hour training, I actually do a half-day workshop, sometimes multiple-day workshops on strategic communication planning and breaking down each of these steps. We don't have all that time today, but what I did want to say is these 6 steps are essential when you do strategic communication planning. First one, conducting an audit. And so Dr. Vanderpoy sent some of the content that you all may be using this upcoming fall or have used previously. So the first step in really thinking about communicating strategically with students is, what are we doing right now? Where are the gaps? Where are we under communicating? Where are we over communicating? What are we assuming that the students know already and therefore we don't talk about it, right? And then the second part, after you've done a really good mapping or auditing exercise, is refining the strategy, priority, and objectives. This upcoming fall, our 5 main priorities are this. This is how we will achieve them. This is our objective. Really determining as a team and as a collective, what do we want to achieve together and what are our intended outcomes? And if you're in student affairs, you know that intended learning outcomes or learning outcomes are our bread and butter and what we are asked to do all the time. And so and just like with any of our programmatic activities, we have to think about our communication plan in the same way. Once we've done the audit and we've thought about our strategy and our priorities and how we'll get there, we want to do the content creation and production. This means creating the script for the phone call, the content for the social media post, the content for the email, all of that stuff, because that'll come once we understand these are our objectives or these are our verticals or buckets, and this is how all of this content flows or fits underneath it. Once we've created the content, we can then develop a calendar and pop it into the calendar so that we know, well, today the Center of Academic Excellence is doing their outreach, and there may potentially be overlap between my team and their team. So it doesn't make sense for me to do my calls and text messages and emails today when another team is already doing that. The only way we'll know that, the only way we'll have that kind of visibility is if we have an integrated calendar and a plan that is shared across units, so that we know that students are being reached out, on Monday by their academic advisor, Tuesday financial aid is doing their outreach, Wednesday is an open day. That is a great day for me to do outreach to the student. Or maybe we wait a few days because this week has been a heavy outreach week. We have found, and the research also backs this up, is that when we over communicate with students, when we inundate them with emails and text messages and social media posts and voicemails, that they start to tune out. Right, they start to not pay attention. They get overwhelmed, and it's almost as if you've ever been in a cereal aisle in the grocery store. I haven't been in a grocery store in a long time now, but if you've been in a grocery store and you're in one of those aisles where you have to pick one out of many options, you start to feel paralyzed and become overwhelmed. That is exactly what is happening to our students. They're seeing all of these things that they need to do, or all of these things that potentially that they may need to prioritize. And sometimes in a moment of panic and feeling overwhelmed, they decide, well, I'm not going to make any decision, or I'm not going to engage at all. Finally, when you've developed an integrated calendar and a plan, you want to evaluate impact. You want to see, okay, well, we called 10 students to complete their X form and 8 out of 10 completed. So this method was really helpful. This method really worked. And you can compare it. Was a phone call better for this campaign, or was a text message more effective? And once you start to evaluate your impact and see whether it's really driving towards those priorities that you had set at the onset, then you can determine what kind of tweaks you need to make to the plan, what kind of adjustments or modifications you need to make to really make impact. And then finally, you take all that information, you evolve, and you continue to do that semester after semester. And again, this is a lot more in depth in our typical training, but if you have any questions, feel free to chat them to me and I can follow up with you afterwards as well. So what is a communication plan? It's an end-to-end plan for delivering those strategic messages to your key audiences. Here are 3 questions I want the team to think about here. Who are we trying to reach? And very specifically, not just HT students, but are we trying to reach our first-year students? Are we trying to reach our first-year students in a specific, potentially a first-gen student program initiative that we have? Are we trying to reach our students on SAP, satisfactory academic progress? Are we trying to reach our athletes? Who is this specific population? Let's get as specific as possible. And what message do you want them to receive? Is it simply a deadline or a form they need to submit? Or is this motivational? Is this about letting them know that they have academic support services available? And how will you try to reach them? Often we assume that the best way to reach a student is via email or via text. We don't actually know until we do some survey or focus groups with our students. So if you work with students or have students in your office or in your program, I encourage you to ask them, what is the best way to reach students regarding this type of messaging? And you'll be really surprised with the kind of responses you get from students, and that can really shape your strategy as well. So we talked a lot about this. The one thing that I want to come back to is what platform has experienced the most growth last year. So, but with that, I mean, and I talk a lot about this in terms of social media, but I also ask you to think about, where do you get the most engagement? Are you getting students to call you back or to answer your phone calls? Are you finding more engagement on email, or are students responding to you more on text message? We really need to take a look at what happened in the past to determine which platform to prioritize and utilize for the upcoming outbound communication that we want to send. What type of content attracted the attention of our students? Was it when we sent a lengthy email? Or was it when we sent a multimedia image? Was it when we did a Zoom webinar? What type of content was most impactful, got the most attraction from your audience? And then we talk, this is the important part, is how are we going to organize that content? How frequently will we communicate, and who will own it, right? Who will own managing this shared calendar? Who will own the production of the content? Who will ensure that we're not over communicating or communicating on the same days and thereby inundating the student, right? There has to be a role that a team member plays in all of this work. Okay. So planning content and campaigns. And this is what we do at Project Success. We have sent over 1 million text messages across 20 Project Success institutions, mostly HBCUs across several states. And so we have learned that being organized is critical, right? We have to be organized. We have to be very tedious in our campaign planning. We have to think through all of the various messages that are going to all of the groups on campus. And in order to do that, we have to organize and execute a communication strategy with a shared calendar. And that helps us enforce deadlines. So we know when we need the data for the outbound messages, we know what type of content is going out and to who. It helps us deliver organization-wide visibility. So not only can the president or the VP or the director or the financial aid coordinator all see what's happening, but we are able to then have some shared accountability as well, right? So if someone had said, well, I need you to block this week for outbound communication that my office is doing, and you block that week off, but you see that no content has been put into the calendar or nothing has been done, then that is a signal to the person owning or managing the process to say, hey, we had this hold on the calendar for this week. We don't see anything happening. Are you still going to communicate with students? Do you have your content ready and prepared? And so it offers that visibility, but also accountability. And it also helps staff understand what needs to be done and when. And there is a question that we got in the chat, and Steve, if you want to, it's a customer service related question, if you want to address that. So best practices for email. I will say, and before I go on, Dr. Vanderpoy, how are we doing on time? Did you want us to wrap up at a certain time? I want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's schedule today. You're on mute.
Yes, I think you were supposed to end at 55 or so and leave 5 minutes for questions, but you can go up to, you can take 10 minutes and then we can wrap it up then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So best practices for emails. So before we talk about best practices for emailing students, I want to say this. Effective communication will happen when we ensure that all of the URLs and contact information and resources that we are sending in those emails or text messages or social media are updated. In my experience over the last few years in designing strategic outbound communication for various institutions across the country, I have found that when you write a text that says, call this person or email this, or you're going to find more information on this website, and if I click on that and either that phone number doesn't work anymore, that email is wrong or invalid now, or that staff person has left, or when we direct students to that web page and that web page is outdated, then that sends a signal to the student that the information that I'm getting from this email or from this email account or from this group or from this center is not accurate, and I'm not going to pay attention to this anymore. And we have found this to be very true. And even in my own experience, I have found that when I get sent something and I find that it's not accurate, I start like tuning out, because I know that, well, they're not going to send me accurate information. It's not going to be legitimate. And so therefore I'm not going to pay attention to it. And so it's really important that before you send emails and text messages or any other form of outbound communication to your students, that you go back and look at those websites, that contact information. I have found that sometimes we tell the students, well, you can go to the directory and find your faculty and contact them that way, especially in the virtual space. But is your directory information updated? Our faculty information is updated, right? And so it's really important to do that first step, especially when you're auditing process, and then write the communication. But once you're there, you want to personalize the communication. So if you can make it specific to the person, like, hi, Sana, that's really key because it captures attention right away. You want to know that emails come from a known source. And sorry, this is CPD here. This was one of the centers I was working for, and I forgot to swap that out. But instead of a broad email coming from, let's say, your Center for Academic Excellence, CAE, we want to send the email from someone that the person knows. So maybe they know the director, maybe they know the faculty mentor, maybe they know the peer mentor. So having an email come from that direct personal connection makes it stick. And when you see that, you think, okay, this isn't a broadcast message. This is something coming from someone I know who has an important message to share with me. Again, we want to avoid email fatigue. So you want to have that shared calendar where you can see how many emails and text messages and so on and so forth are going out. You want to keep the message simple, informative, and engaging. So Dr. Vanderpoy had sent me some email content, and I found that there were, blocks of text. You'll find that students will not get through those blocks of text. They're going to skim, if at all, and then they're going to move on. And so if we want to do email communication, we have to make it concise and organized, and we have to make it very clear why we are communicating with them. Also, time matters. So you want to avoid weekends, and you want to also Mondays typically, and you want to aim for the Tuesday to the Thursday kind of time frame, and that's what research shows is the best time to email students. Text message campaigns. So again, update all of that information before you send it out in a text. You want to personalize the text messages, but you also want to make them timely, right? So if you get a deadline reminder for 3 weeks before the deadline, that's great, because it's now you know, and you can potentially mark it on your calendar. But I know in my decade of working with students and also being a first generation college student, when I got something 3 weeks in advance, I automatically thought, oh, I'll get to that. And I got to that typically the day before it was due or the hour before it was due, in all honesty. And so when we text students, we have the opportunity to make it very timely. We can personalize it. Hi, Sana, the deadline to complete enrollment for fall term is today. Be sure you get it done before 11:59 p.m., right? So you want to make it personalized. You want to make it timely. You want to have a call to action. And you can use professional text speak. So cues for questions, the @ appointment, but you don't want to be too informal and use, for example, LOL or other informal text speak. You want to engage with students with questions and action prompts. Again, keep it very short and informative. We want to predict student confusion and questions that they have. And also avoid using institutional jargon as well, right? And so, for example, we send out a text message to students asking them to make sure that they were financially cleared. And this is sent to, upperclassmen who have been at the institution for several years. We got back immediately within seconds a flood in our inbox of questions about, well, what do you mean financially clear? Does that mean I don't have financial aid? Does that mean I'm pending financial aid? I thought I had financial aid. What happened to it? Is something wrong? So we assume that the students understand certain institutional language, but we have to break that down for them. We have to demystify those processes and that language so they know exactly what they need to do. And finally, I've just broke down sort of the anatomy of the text message. So again, you want to personalize, you want to tell them who you are, you want to give them the purpose of the text message, and this is true for email too, like, why are you communicating? What is the call to action or the urgency? And then the resource. And this is the anatomy of a text, but you can use the same anatomy for an email. Emails are longer, but again, do you have all of these items in the email? And is it concise? Is it organized? Is it easy to follow? And I'll end with this. Have you considered social media engagement? And you may already be doing this. I'm not aware. And so, but if you're not, I encourage you to think about how can you create a virtual community on your social media platforms, because it will help you keep your audience informed and updated. It'll also help you go live. So Facebook Live, Instagram Live, these are all channels where you can connect with students. You can do live video events with students, and they're really effective and engaging, especially for the generation that we're serving right now. And it allows you to use multimedia to capture student attention. So short videos, memes, GIFs. Again, you can keep all of these professional, but it allows you to capture student attention. So with that, I will go ahead and pause. We'll allow for a few minutes for questions. And see if anyone has any comments or thoughts. And again, Steve and I can be available one-on-one to speak to any one of the units that are here. We can do a more in-depth, presentation, of course. And when things are better, we definitely will stop by campus and talk more in depth then as well.
Very good.
I like to say that this is I've during my career, I've seen a lot of customer service presentations. I think this is probably the best I've ever seen. And this was just a little short spiel. So I'm excited to see, how much more in how that you have. So perhaps at some point we will be able to do something more globally with the university. But I want to applaud the conventionality of your and up-to-date concepts that you've talked about, the practical things that we do now in this society. So I applaud your efforts.
Thank you. And I did answer the question you posted in the chat as well. And it's a very, very good question about just celebrating the successes, because the more, like any culture, the more we celebrate it and talk about it and do it, the stronger it gets. But yes, I would love to come and do the full presentation and this group discussion at any point. We can do it maybe someday in person, or if not, we'll do it by Zoom. But please let me know and I'll be happy to do it. Thank you. Thanks for those comments.
Yeah, and I asked that question because sometimes when you're in an environment that's fast-paced and you have expectations, and sometimes people don't want to reward or award expectations, and it's kind of ignored sometimes because it's not the priority for this particular day or a moment. So it is I think good for any company to step back, take a time and celebrate those people who are emulating the kinds of things that you want to see that with your company.
Absolutely, and they can even be, I know many of you on this call are managers of staff, and just even telling someone on your staff, hey, that was a great job you did back there with that student, just little informal recognitions like that too go a long way. So absolutely, totally agree with you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I think we're right on time, 10 a.m. Thank you very much, Steve and Teresa and Ms. Megani. It was quite interesting. what you talked about. We did not talk much, but the theme of this retreat, you kind of went into that, planning, calendar, and those are some of the things actually on our agenda for today. I just approached you to talk about communication, but we know that this kind of communication is even very so key right now in this COVID era where, over the past semesters, you see a student around and you just communicate, you tell them something, or you just even see them, just the visual communication. But now everything has to go through virtual email. And so how we do these things are very, very important, even more so at this time. So thank you very much. We hope that we would have had more time, but I think from even the response, I can see that I think we will be getting back to you very shortly. And maybe
Awesome.
Thank you for having us this morning.
Something more, as Dr. Downey said, more globally. So thank you very much, and I'm sure I'll keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vanna. Y'all have a great weekend. Have a great retreat.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So we're back to home turf now, and I think we're supposed to have a 10-minute break. I would just like to say a few things before we go on the break. And thank you. I did invite a few of our staff last minute to join us for this 1 hour, and so they can leave us. But before they leave, let me say a few things about the presentation. I don't know why Ms. Stinson didn't say anything about the presentation. So I'd like to, anybody, a few general thoughts about what you heard?
Actually, Dr. Vanderpoy, I've already been working with Trellis, so I kind of knew informally, we had some discussions about what we should be doing for some communications that we have been doing. So that's why I didn't have, because I'm familiar with them and I've used their services already. We're continuing to use their services, particularly during now with the fall 2020 retention efforts initiatives. We actually have a text message going out to our students. We're planning for that next week. So for those students who have not responded to our survey yet. So that's why.
Right. And everyone, I believe most people here on this are still also working on the RAM Ready project, communicating with students about fall 2020. Miss Tila is doing that. Of course, Miss Mars is involved with that. So Miss, of course, Miss, as Miss Stinson said that she's already working with Trellis. This, for those of you, from what you have heard, you're working with students, opens the door for you. You can contact Trellis they have a whole, a lot of resources as far as higher ed, is concerned. And so this opens the door for you. If you need any help, you need any resources, you can contact them and to get whatever help you need. I'm very sure that maybe we may have learned something new, and even if you haven't learned something new, maybe just a reminder of some of the things. Those points about students going to the president, we all know about that, and some of the points that they made. In fact, I didn't talk at length about them, but but some of the things they did talk about is already on our agenda to go more in details later on. So for those that are invited just for this hour, thank you for joining us. I hope you learned something and you take it along as you do your work. And once again, from what you've heard, you will need more resources from Trellis. Then if you need the contact information, you can go through me, contact them so that you can enhance what you do. Okay, and I'll just have to mention on CAE, the area of maybe social media. I think they have a lot of resources there as well, so we can use their help. They can help us to be able to reach out to students more effectively. So we will take the 10. I think we'll come back at 10:15, and then, as we all know, we'll take it from there. So let's reconvene at 10:15. All right, thank you. that might be something we can explore more. But that was a general brief presentation from Trellis. And once again, if in the area of professional development or any resources that we need, they are a good resource for us to use. So to the purpose of the retreat, yes, once again, I hope that everybody's doing well, you and your families. And it's my prayer that we all continue to stay safe and healthy. And just to add also to what the president said, I appreciate all of you to what you do for HT. Now, let me see if I can share my screen here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yes. Yes.
That's excellent. Where is my good? So for the purpose of this retreat, if you look at our agenda for today, the last three, you know, we see agenda, goal setting, and then 2021 calendar, right? What theme do you see? What runs through all three? Right? Assessment, goal setting, calendar, they all kind of
Planning.
They all go together, planning. And so when I saw the Trellis first slide, the slide on the the communication, and we didn't talk about planning, and you know they had planning there. I think in their presentation also I saw calendar, and then I said putting all things together. So it's about assessment, goal setting, calendar, planning, all together. And I know we do some of these things, but as I bring academic affairs together, I know we're a diverse group, but all together, we all get to what? Educating our students. So I want to put these things, planning, assessment, goal setting, calendar, in front of everybody, that we now have to be very conscious and have this as strategic items to work towards in our everyday functioning, carrying out our everyday duties for the university. So I think this was last year when we did our assessment. That was part of an email message I sent to everyone. And I will show you the book I'm referring to later on. But I think this is a very important statement that, just the statement about a consistent and intelligent method of assessment together with assessing output results and tracking trajectory and rigor makes a great organization. A great organization, and I think that is what we aspire to be. Would you say HT is a great organization? Would you say we are a good organization? I would say we aspire to be a great organization, but how do we get there? Now, the things we have here, assessment and all those things, they are not the only things that will get you to greatness. Yes, but that is a major part of it. So we have to assess what we do. We have to assess output results and then tracking trajectory. All this links to planning, setting a goal. Are we meeting the goal that we set? And then what do you do? In SAC COC language, Dr. Downey will tell you, they say close the loop. So you set goals, then you assess yourself whether you are meeting the goals. Now, if you meet the goal, what do you do? Now, I happen to be a SAC COC reviewer, and when you review some schools' assessment, they say that they set a goal and they met it, and then period. Now, SACs will, what's the way? Will ding you for that, because you can't say that I met the goal and then my job is done. No. What do you do? If you meet a goal, you have to set a stretch goal for yourself. You got to go to the next level. if you don't meet the goal, what do? You got to find ways of meeting the goal. Now, I think some of you have been involved working with Dr. Downing, and that will be the next presentation by Dr. Downing to talk about assessment. And so when you are doing your assessment, those are some of the things you have to watch. If you meet the goal, the next step is what? Set a higher goal and strive to meet it. If you don't meet the goal, in your reporting, you have to show, how do you try to find alternative ways to meet the goal. Now, we happen to be a SAT COC school, and also we happen to be in a reaffirmation year. This is the year that we are writing up for our reaffirmation. And so assessment is critical. And I know Dr. Downing is working with some of you to do just that. So, 10:30. I want to put something on each and every one of us, our minds here. The theme for this year, 2020, 2021, good to great. I've made reference to this book already, Good to Great. And so what do I mean by good to great? What I mean by this is the theme for academic affairs this year. In whatever you do, think about how you are moving your department, your sphere that you are involved in HT, moving it from good to great. I believe some of you are thinking, but we need a lot of money and resources to be great. But I think that even if you have a lot of money and you don't manage it well, we know a lot of institutions that have squandered such resources and money. But to get us from good to great, one of the things we have to do is assessment, goal setting. And so I'll be talking more about that. I'd like to know what does Blue Ocean Strategy mean? Can you show? I'd like to see on the chart screen. Let me know if you know what Blue Ocean Strategy is. I'm waiting for the responses. Seems like your screen sharing is paused. Remove share. That's right. Okay, now how do I get off screen sharing? Am I sharing my screen? No, you are sharing.
Go down. Yeah, just go down to if you click on it, you should be able to see where it says share screen. It should say stop sharing.
Stop sharing.
Maybe
there you go. Good. Okay, so now let me look at, thank you, Ms. Stinson. Let me look at my chart. The strategy is endless. Miss Miles, Dr. Miles says, strategy endless in terms of excellence. No, I have not heard of this formal way, but creatively, I don't know. I think from a book. Okay, so absolutely, yes. Oh no, that's okay. So I got a few, no clue what it Blue Ocean Strategy. So this is something I believe. I thought President Burnett has shared it in some forum. I thought some of you have been in that forum, but maybe not. So I'll say a few things about that. But basically, there's talk about Blue Ocean Strategy is it's about, I think I would say something about innovation, kind of a new idea, new big idea from let's say nowhere, and something like that can propel an institution forward. It compares with Red Ocean Strategy. It's kind of maintaining the status quo, something along those lines. So when I'm talking about, we need a blue ocean strategy, good to great. Wherever we are right now as an HT, what do we need? We need bold, big, innovative ideas to move us from where we are to the next level. So for example, I think an example that has been given is Uber, for example. Uber, where did Uber come from? I think, a couple of years before we didn't have Uber, but right now I believe it's a multi-billion-dollar company from maybe a simple idea of whatever, ride sharing. So in whatever we do at HT, in our department, let's think about, where do we go from here to the next level? Okay, so I'll just pause here, and then at this point in time, I'll invite Dr. Downing to take us through assessment.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Vanderpoort has me down for 30 minutes. I don't know whether it'll take that long, but I'll do the best I can. I've been giving a lot of thought as I've been writing the SACS report. And incidentally, number 8, which is student achievement, and number 7, institutional planning and effectiveness, are the only 2, and 13, of course, that are not complete right now. Documents at the editors besides those 3 standards. So I'm trying to put the finishing touches on those, and it's been really challenging and I look back and think about all the things that we've done and all the trainings we had and everything with the assessment plans, and we still aren't where we need to be. Academic affairs the loop is closing. We only have maybe 2 or 3 out. I think 2 or 3 out right now. And I'm expecting those to be in by either today or Monday. But the non-academic, one of the things that SACS in the new standards is requiring, a lot of people have been doing it for years, but now they're requiring us to respond to, is the academic and non-academic standards for non-academic programs. So in addition to the programs that we have, like the library and like the ADP program, the Center for Academic Excellence, the Center for Academic Innovation Transformation, those areas, we also have to respond to non-academic programs like enrollment management, those programs, and we've been working with them as well. Haven't worked with this group as much, but I have worked with you as a non-academic program. As a matter of fact, there are 2 programs that I do have plans for right now, but of course we need to do some revisions. I think I've spoken with those 2 people individually. But I try to modify the process a little bit for us, because initially I was mimicking the academic process, minus a few bells and whistles. But I think that what I have for you today is a more modified process, and a process that will help me and my staff, help us to help you a little better in getting this done and getting it done expeditiously. We're gonna have to take some time, and I did talk with Dr. Vanderpoort a couple of times to step back and to take a look at what we're doing and try to get it in a more efficient way. Right now, we work in isolation, different things. We talk about assessment. We talk about planning. We talk about goals for the next year. We have a lot of pieces that are out there, but really they should all be connected. And when we have them all connected, and it makes it smoother and easier for us to perform, and it makes it easier for us to understand and utilize the information. So thank you, Jennifer. She's driving for me today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about assessment as you prepare the end product, or the deliverable on this is for you to develop your assessment plans for your non-academic areas. And the question is that all of us should have, or we have, is our department accomplishing what it wishes to accomplish? Well, the assumption there is that we know what we're supposed to be accomplishing. Well, how do you determine that? Of course, job description, and then there's basically some things that an office of that nature are supposed to be accomplishing. It may be more extended beyond what the students want or students need, but I advise you to, I admonish you to do some research about areas like yours online to see what is called for that area. What are some of the things that are required of the area? And then, of course, you can have your own, I guess, a non-academic freedom to put the bells and the whistles where you want. And then, if you are accomplishing, if you want to accomplish certain things, then how do you know whether you're accomplishing them or not? We tend to work in reverse. We just do things, and then we see the results without knowing what we're working toward. Okay, so there are 4 basic elements of assessment that what assessment can do for the university. It can improve the function of your department. It can inform stakeholders about the contributions of your department and how they're fulfilling the mission. Okay, because everything should lead back to the mission. Okay, and then support institutional level strategic planning. We're at the end of this strategic planning cycle is 2025. Well, we should be thinking right now what things are happening, going on, looking at our data to see how that plan needs to be shaping up now. Okay, and then it provides evidence that the department is accomplishing what it is supposed to do. Okay, at this point, what I want to have you to do something. This is going to be an engagement activity. I have an activity that I like everybody to perform. On a little piece of paper beside you or your notes or whatever, I want you to respond to this activity. And if you'll go to the activity one sheet, Miss Miles. Okay, no, not the activity sheet. The activity sheet. Number 2. Okay. All right, I want you to answer this question. How do you know what the students you work with are supposed to be learning, and what kind of learning experience do you provide for them? We're gonna backtrack. We're gonna say, all right, you have an area, each one of you have an area. So what are the experiences that you carry your students through that you think that they are learning something from, or you would like them to learn something from? Okay, that's it. Okay, so I want you to write that experience down, regardless of what it is. It might be you having the library may have a book club. Okay, the Student Success Center may have tutoring. The adult education program may have an orientation. Okay, what it is what is it that you present for your students that you anticipate or expect them to learn something from? Now, as an operational area, you may have some experiences that you provide for your students that may be operational in nature. For instance, well, registration is not here. Let's say, let's see who's here. Okay. Okay, signing up for the online, getting an access to online resources. Okay. Making sure that all students have online resources access, or that students attend chapel. Okay, there's some operational things like that that you want to make sure that the students are perceiving that the services are are good for. Then how do you check that? What is it that you use to determine whether it was a good event or a bad event, or whether it was successful or not? How do you check it? And then when do you check it? Is it during the semester, right after the service that you provide? Or when do you do it? Is it by the end of the semester? Is it by the end of the year? So I'd like you to write maybe 2 or 3 things down, because this is going to provide, and then I want you to send those to me by email. Send those to me so that I can help you, direct you in terms of what your outcomes should look like, what your results should look like, and how you can collect the data. Does anybody have a question? If you have a question, raise your hand. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. I don't see any hands raised.
Dr. Donovan, you want us to email these right now?
No, I don't want you to email it right now. I just want to email it probably at the end of this session.
Okay.
Because like I said, we need to put these plans together expeditiously. Okay? Okay? So I want to be able to offer you some suggestions. If I know what are some of the things, the experiences that you carry your students through already, and maybe something you already collected. I don't know, but it may not be written down, you know. Okay. The dean, we have a dean here. We have both deans. We have a dean here. Okay. You may want all your faculty members to, you know, you have some things that you want your faculty members to do, or you have some things you want your students to do. Okay. Okay. Couple more minutes I'm going to give you for that. How you coming? Couple more minutes to do. Looking at me like I'm crazy. And I am. Addie. Okay, what? Dr. Buzz? Dr. Hirsch?
Yeah, what's the question?
Who's got the baby? I heard Daddy.
I think that's Miss Stinson.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep myself on mute until I have to talk.
No,
but
that's my Daddy. I was like,
that's my grandson.
Okay. Just jot down 3 experiences or learning activities that you have in your area. Okay. And then write down how you check to see if the students got it, basically. And then when do you check? Maybe a survey. And I keep talking because I want you to make sure you got your ideas together, okay? Okay, it may be a focus group that you have. Maybe a reflection or a question box, or, you know. Okay, let's move on because I got to stay on time. Okay, go back to my PowerPoint if you don't mind. Okay, I want to give you some examples of measurements or means of assessing things. Okay, that seems to be the area where most people have problems. If I can tell you that most of the faculty members for academics, they've said that the way that they want to assess is through a test. Well, the test is the weakest measure. So we want to try to get people to use more than test. There are other ways to test. Okay, these are some examples of measurement or means of measurement. First of all, remember that you'll need to prioritize your department when determining the type of measures that you're going to use. There are basically 2 types. It's direct measures, which you get the immediate response directly from the student, and then there are indirect measures, where they are like secondary measures, okay? So let's talk about a little bit about each one of those. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, examples of direct evidence. These are demonstration of knowledge or skills, okay? These are some of the assignments. Most of these won't mean a whole lot to you in your non-academic areas, but they're really meaningful for academic classes and academic programs, okay? Reflection papers. A lot of people use reflection papers in journaling. Qualitative papers, oral presentations, labs, test quiz summaries, and analysis of electronic class discussion threads, pre-post tests, employee ratings, course embedded assessments. Now, if you can use a test if you're using certain questions out of that test. So these were maybe course embedded assessments where you have like questions about certain outcomes that you want students to use. That's pretty acceptable, but not to use a whole test score, because in the test you're asking so many variables, you got so many variables, it doesn't really give you any meaningful assessment unless you're using an item analysis, okay? Examine external evaluation performance doing internships and student teaching. How do you capture those? Do you just let the person that's supervising students say, oh, they did okay, I'll give them a C. Well, what is it based on? I mean, there should be some kind of instrument where you're collecting that data or something, not just what we call observation score, okay? Out of subjective. Class discussion, participation. This takes a little more time to track, but it can be tracked. If you have, how many of you, when you have something and you see a student speak up that's never spoke up before, it's like, wow, okay, I must be getting to them, okay? Artistic performances. And artistic performance is something now that we use a lot is our pitches, when they're having pitch contests and so forth. You can assess those, okay? Projects for capstone courses, portfolios, standardized testing and licensure exams, and essay questions with blind scoring, okay? Blind scoring, that simply means that, you don't really know who wrote the essay. Yeah, because sometimes we can subconsciously put certain analogies with certain people. We have someone that gives us something that if somebody sends you a letter and it's poorly written, you've already made an assessment about that person. Whatever they send you is going to be poorly written because you already made that assessment, okay? All right, then of course there's indirect, and these will be more applicable to your area in terms of what we call operational outcomes, okay? They provide proxy information about the students' learning. Proxy information about students' learning. Alumni surveys, employee surveys, student surveys, interviews, exit interviews. We do all those things. Focus groups. Yes, you can assess a focus group. Use them a lot in research projects. Graduate fellow studies, follow-up studies, external peer reviews, benchmark data. You may have, you'll say the average score for students, or average score in your reading, you may find out that the average for all students in this discipline is so-and-so. So you should know this, okay? Utilization numbers, graduate rates and retention rates, job placement data, and you can read on there. GPA distributions, okay? This is one for CAE. You may use a distribution. You may look at a student score when they come into you, or grade when they come into you, and then due to your intervention that you're going to write, the intervention you're going to have to write with those people, how do they respond at the end? Okay, did they improve their grade point average, or was it lowered, or was it the same? Okay, Course evaluations, of course, we do those on a regular basis, so we have those in GRE and GMAT scores. And also there's some state testing scores for teacher education and so forth that you can use. Okay, next please. Measures can be either qualitative and quantitative. We're pretty good at the qualitative, observing the quality of something, as opposed to quantitative is a number. It's usually a number. It can be a percentage, it can be an average, it can be anything numerical is quantitative. You want to have a mixture of both and lean more toward the quantitative. Now in the SPLL system, we can design it so that you can use a percentage. It is already set up that way, percentages. But we can also, if someone has an assessment that is based on a qualitative, who can tell me something that will be a qualitative score? What would be a qualitative score on something? Something like a Likert scale, okay? Like a Likert scale. Agree, disagree, strongly disagree, strongly agree. It's qualitative in nature. No number, just a qualitative assessment. It's good, it's bad, it's ugly, okay? All right. All right, let's go to the next one, if you don't mind. Okay. Now, how's my time? I like to take a look. There's a sheet, there are two sheets that says I've done 2 programs, library and Center for Academic Excellence, in terms of demonstrating what quantitative and qualitative measures will look like in those areas. Okay, so if you can get those 2 sheets up for me, I appreciate it. This is one of them first. I'll say this is the library. Okay, some of the quantitative numerical types of measures you might have would be your library budget and expenditures. Now I know personally over the last few years you've done a lot in that area. So, you know, one of your goals should have been increase the budget for a library, okay? Because that's something that you achieve and you can quantitatively show that that's been done. You took a proposal to the budget committee to add the student fee, okay? That was one, and it was approved. You petitioned Title III for use of some carryover funds. That's another one. So you have some really good gains in that area, but can you demonstrate them? You can't demonstrate them because you probably didn't have a goal for it, okay? So we need to probably backtrack so we can capture that. The collection size. I know there's a real effort that's been in that area to reduce the older collection and to increase the collection size that you have. You sent things out asking people to recommend books and so forth. Okay, that's another one, but is it captured? I doubt it. Okay, not in your assessment plan. And I'm gonna pick on these people a little bit, but that can take it. Okay, collection use. Are the collections being used by the students? Do you have a goal for how much collection, how much you want students to use the resources that you have? Is there a goal for that? Do you want to increase it? And it could be for your online collection, or it could be or a combination, or your on-site collection. But that should be an important goal for a library. A library should want the resources to be used, okay? Service deliveries. Have you increased the number of services that you have? Have you provided, from an educational standpoint, opportunities, resources to inform people about what the services are? Okay, those are all goals that should be set by your area, and you definitely have the actions in terms of getting them done. That's why I said a lot of this stuff is, we're gonna have to backwalk into it, okay? Staff to student ratio is another one. I'm seeing something, you want to increase staff. I've seen that. So, you know, that's another goal. Now let's take a look at some qualitative measures. Staff qualification, student satisfaction with the library collection. I know you recently did a survey. So you were doing assessment stuff, but if you can't show it, assessment gives you a way to show what you're doing. Okay. All right. Student satisfaction with library services. Student satisfaction with library facilities. Okay, all those are measures that can be used to support outcomes or objectives that you have for your program. Now you don't want to do everything. I've asked everybody in the non-academic areas to do 5 to 7 goals. You don't have to respond to everyone every year, but you have to respond to all within 5 years. So we're in the 3rd year of this particular set of outcomes, so you need to respond to all of them from here on out, okay? All right. Now, if you put up student support services or an Center for Academic Excellence, I'll give you some examples, and I hope these help the others with theirs. Dr. Vanderpoort and I haven't really talked if we want to go to have plans for the college and the school. It wouldn't hurt because it helps with your planning. I know Dr. Vanderpoort asks every one of us every year to present to him an action plan. Well, your action plan and your assessment plan could be the same thing. The things that you plan to accomplish during that year, okay? Can you put up the other sheet like that? Is for the academic students for success. How am I going on time, Dr. Vanderpoort? Okay. Now, this one is done on student support, academic support services, which is our Center for Academic Excellence. Quantitatively, you could ask numerically the number of students that you served. Okay, we started tracking that, so you could tell us that now. Okay, the number and percentage of students on academic probation or dismissal. Okay, the number of those students requesting accommodations as students with disabilities. That's something that you would probably have to, coordinate with, what's the name, with the ADA coordinator.
Mr. Houston?
Mr. Houston, okay. And the number of first-year advisors, number of first-year advisees, okay. Looking at that, how many students are we serving each advisor serving? That's definitely something you want to keep track of. Because you don't want some people to have more, you don't want the variation to be that great, okay? Also, your tutors. How many people are your tutors serving? That may be one, okay? Okay, when you look at the qualitative measures, and if we scroll down, the qualitative measures for your areas, student satisfaction with the academic support services. I know that's something we do. Why do we do it? Because we want to know and make sure that we are performing a task that office is required to do, and that we are doing it in a way that we can demonstrate. Student expectations concerning academic advisement. And then student satisfaction with academic advisement, maybe another one, a survey, and faculty evaluation of academic advisement support services. Okay, those are quantitative things, and they could be sent out on a survey using the Likert scale: satisfied, not satisfied, dissatisfied, but whatever. Okay, so as you can see, we're doing this stuff. What we're not doing a good job of is documenting it. And that's what the assessment process is all about. It's a way to, that institution, and if someone needed to, we need to use the information while we are doing assessment, doing our strategic planning, it's there for us to use. If we want to use it to see what we need to improve the next year. And that's another thing Dr. Vanderpoort just mentioned. Closing the gap. Closing the loop, not gap, I'm sorry. Closing the loop. Closing the loop means that you have a written assessment plan of what you want to accomplish. You collect the data that you need, and you outline when you're going to collect that data. You analyze that data. You see where your loopholes are, where your strong points are, and you look at your assessment to see what action plans you're going to make for the next year to improve on your performance. Okay, and those things go back into your plan again. It may be another outcome that you write, or it may be strengthening an outcome. Some of the things that we've seen is people have too many things they're measuring. They're using one instrument to measure it all, so you don't know which one of those things is being measured. If you measure knowledge, skill, and disposition, and you have one assessment that you're using to do all those, and you say that the outcome is 70%, what are you measuring? Which one are you measuring? Or how are you measuring all of them? So you want to make sure that you have your objectives or your outcomes written very clean, short, clean, to the point, so that when you do your data collection or your measures, to measure what those, that it is clean and your data outcome is clean, because that can inform what you're doing in that cycle of looking at it, reviewing it, and making plans for the next year, like that. Okay, I put a copy of the strategic plan, and I'll make sure everybody gets these documents. I have them on Teams, but I didn't see a Teams for this retreat, so I have to send them to you by email or something. But they should be tied to this right here, to the strategic plan. Okay, an example of that is you've gone to this next. I've given an example of. Go ahead. This template looks a little different because I simplified it. The sample. It gives me the same information that the previous one did. If anybody's have used that previous one, I don't think maybe 2 people used it, but it's simplified. Okay, this is what the yours will look like. You're going to put the area. You press first of all, put your name, the name of your program, and then the year or whatever. The area of operational outcome. Okay. The first one I said 75% of full-time undergraduate students who live in the residence hall, said how many, who they are, will attend at least 3 chapel services per semester. Okay, this is a utilization number. Okay, so I'm not sure how we measure it right now, but I think we have a sign-in sheet or something. I'm not sure. If that's something, how are you going to measure that? You got to figure out how you're going to measure it. Having to sign in or use their card to slide or whatever. But then someone has to look to see every how many students did that. That would be a direct measure. If you're going to use an indirect measure, you might say, give a survey and have the students to tell you how many they attended. Okay, that's arbitrary because they could say all, okay? But that's why it's secondary data, okay? And then you're gonna do one for first semester and one for second semester. Okay, and then that will give you for the year. 80%, second was 80% of the students surveyed will rank their satisfaction or they're satisfied or higher with the campus upgrades throughout the campus. We already do a survey. We can extrapolate from that survey who the students are, and we can have those results. Okay, so that would be something you could use the measure that we're using in institutional planning, research, and assessment, and we can provide you with that data. to answer that question. Okay? And when we send it out, you can look at it and see what the response to your question is. This same question could be used for faculty. Okay? You could make it so for faculty of the classrooms as opposed to the campus upgrades. Whatever fits your area. If you're going to do the students in the dorm, then you need to just say the students in the dormitories and not everybody. Okay? So, and then we usually do that the first semester, so you could have that by December 15th. At least 60% of all students would participate in at least one student town hall meeting. I'm sure somebody does a roster for town hall meetings. How many of the students that are enrolled at university for this one attend at least one town hall meeting? Or if you're working in the dormitories, how many students of the students that live in the dormitory? You got to find out what your population is, and then you got to find within that population what group that you're going to use. Okay? You could say the students in my class. I'm sorry, I'm doing academics. Get away from academics. The students that participate in, that have signed up and used services in CAE. That information can be extrapolated. Okay, so all the students who go who work in CAE, I don't know why that would be a goal. It may be a goal for you, it may not. But I put in here the strategic plan goal that each one of these respond to. Sometimes they respond to more than one. When you read your strategic plan, you'll see they respond to, some of them respond to more than one. Okay, but I put the lead one there. And then an example of a student learning outcome would be students would demonstrate knowledge of the handle your business by performing requirements in accordance with the deadline. Okay, so you can, that's information that you can get. You may not have to do it yourself, but you can get it from a source. How many students have we got registered by so-and-so date? That means that they have completed all the requirements. Okay. It could be of a subgroup of students that you're working with in your area. All right. And that contributes to the overall institutional plans and objectives to try to get these things done. Then you can easily show what you're contributing to that. You don't have to sit in a meeting and say, well, we're not contributing anything. We don't know what we're contributing. I don't know what the students that I'm working with have contributed to that. You'll know for sure. Okay. I hope this is helpful. But anyway, and the next one is a template that I want you to use. And if you'll give me that first sheet, Dr. Thompson, I would like to give him a championship clap because he has been very helpful. And Dr. Hirsch too, but Dr. Thompson has helped me to track these people down, to get them and help them to get their assessment plans in the system. And so he and I can assist you, Miss Yan too. We're glad to have Miss Yan back on board to help you to do this. If you give us those first sheets that I ask you, then we can help direct you in terms of what your plan should look like. Okay, I'd like to have all these plans in by the end of this month. Okay, Dr. Vanport, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm here to answer them. And my number is 214-949-5111. That's my personal number, but I'm taking all calls. I do have AT&T, so they play with your phone. So if you call and leave a message, I'll call you back.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Downing. You said you don't need 30 minutes, but you did quite well.
Okay,
So
I tried. I planned quite a bit.
Thank you very much.
I always have to overplan because I talk very fast.
Yeah, so that is good. I hope that is the essence of a retreat is to learning, planning, moving forward. And once again, it's the whole theme of assessment. I should say some of the things we are sharing is overlapping. This is our first retreat, of course, so it's kind of short. And the main point is, as also Dr. Downing said, that we do some of these things, all these things, customer service, everything we're talking about, we already do it. But the goal, one of the goals here is also to add structure to some of the things we're doing, so that we will be better at what we do, so that we get more results from what we do. Assessment, once again, is important to, very important to the HT. It's a SACS requirement. Now, for those of you who are heavily involved with SACS, Dr. Hirsch, Dr. Thompson, of course, Dr. Downing, it's quite demanding. But at the same time, I believe it was the last, at my last SACS conference, and there was a presentation where one of the SACS VPs presented SACS as the SACS, what they call principles or standards, as best practices. And, I would confess that my very first experience with SACS, that was in Jackson, Tennessee, more than 10 years ago. I really hated it. I was in academic affairs. I was always fighting with the, I shouldn't be saying things like this. Okay. So I think I already said that. But the director of institutional research, I believe, was my friend. In fact, and then, and as some schools, not HT, some schools, they don't pay attention to SACS. And then within 2-3 years of reaffirmation, then everything is about SACS. And so this guy was my friend, and then all of a sudden he started talking about SACS, and our friendship nearly ended. But anyway, SACS, if you look at the SACS standards, or what they call principles, in fact, they are actually what we call, they are best practices. And so if we incorporate them into what we do, then when if it's time for SACS, then it wouldn't be that demanding. We already do it. Now, one good thing that we do, and this comes, of course, Dr. Downing, the academic deans, is the way we assess new faculty, the faculty credentials. And so that is, as Dr. Downing knows, that is one area where most schools are found not to be compliant, that the faculty members who are teaching and don't have the necessary requirements. The way the process by which we hire new faculty is quite effective. And so as I review our faculty, I'm not having any problems at all with the compliance of new faculty because of the way we have incorporated the standards in our process, But of course, we don't do it in other areas, and then we have problems. So for those of you who are writing, or yes, you are writing any of the SACS reports, this is to encourage you to, as much as possible, incorporate the SACS standard in our processes, and then we don't have to go finding things when it's time to write a report. One thing I have to mention and not to forget is the use of Teams. I think Teams is a very good tool, and so please utilize Teams. Put all documents in Teams. Of course, you need to add me so that I'll be able to see what is on the team. So make sure that you have all your documents in Teams. So I think at this point, let me try to share my share screen. Is this one? Am I sharing my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, I always have to check with Dr. Bad. Okay. So I was talking about Blue Ocean strategy, and that is kind of some of the information on the Blue Ocean strategy. Something that is not in existence. I give the example of Uber, for example. Now we have the dean of the business school with us, so they do these things. The example of Uber, just came from nowhere, something new, and it's part of our culture right now, making a lot of money. So what are those kind of new ideas? Think about it. Let's think about how we can implement it to help to move the university forward. So Yes.
Dr. Real quickly, as we talked about the blue ocean, and you mentioned the red ocean, I didn't have time to say it before Dr. Uh, Downing got started. But one of the things that I just wanted to bring out is when they talk about the red ocean, they're talking about picture Jaws, the movie Jaws, and how it's just where it's bloody. Okay, so that's what that red means. So when we're looking at our marketing, what we're trying to do is we move into this blue ocean, which is that open space, rather than trying to market into a crowded space. So I think that's one of the things that, as Dr. Vanderpool is trying to point out too, is that that's where the innovation is moving into that space that's not crowded, where business and small universities like ours can get gobbled up. So I think for me, that's kind of like the takeaway when we talk about the blue ocean versus the red ocean.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for that, Dr. Bad. And yes, you talk about Jaws, and then so that talks about the crowded space, the competition, right? Yes. And so that's to thank you for that addition. So I'll move to the next, and in fact, Dr. Downey makes my work easy here. She has talked a whole lot about goal setting in the last session, right? And so just to be a little bit interactive and not for you to be sleeping and nodding, I need everybody to just write. I know everybody knows how to write a SMART goal. I need everybody to write down a SMART goal. I'm not inspecting anything. Just write it down wherever you are. So everybody writes a SMART goal. SMART goal. Yes. So I think we've all heard about SMART goals since we're in high school or thereabouts. So everybody should be experienced with SMART goals. Sometimes it's defined differently. The R can be realistic and all that kind of things. But it is important that when we write our goals, assessment. That is, of course, you have a goal. You have to have a goal to assess, right? Now. This was one of my goals for my evaluation last year. As everybody knows, you have to have and that is one of the key things. I know Dr. Downing deals with assessment and goal setting, but one of the key things that I want to share with you is about the performance evaluations. Now, as part of performance evaluations, I believe everyone has to have three to five goals for the coming year. Is that correct? I think so, 3 to 5 goals, right? Yes. So, for example, this is one of my goals, and I'll leave it to the expert, Dr. Downing, to see if it is smart enough. Did I hit all the SMARTs?
I believe so, sir.
Thank you very much.
The only thing is, it says July. You may want to put a more specific date.
Okay. All right. So you see, Dr. Downing it is by July 2020. My thinking is that so long as I don't exceed July, if I get it done by August 1, then I don't meet my goal. But if I got it done July, what is it? July 31st, then I'm done. So this is important. In fact, we all think that we know SMART goals, but sometimes we don't get it all right. So it's important you get it, always check and make sure you're right. Of course, this is quantitative. You can measure it. When I'm thinking about it, what does 50% of the SATS reaffirmation report means? I know that there are about, is it 14 standards, 14, 15 there are about?
Yes, they are.
Yes, so long as I do 7, is it 14? Yeah, 14. If I do 7, then I've done 50%, something along those lines. So it is important that we do that. Now, this about goal setting is not to talk about how to, or teach you how to set goals. My key point is that it's about our job description and performance evaluations. As I already mentioned, we, as part of our performance evaluations, we're supposed to come up with what, 3 to 5 performance goals. What I need you to do going forward is that for anybody here without a job description, or anybody without a copy of a job description, I believe even our new dean has a job description. So if you have a job description, going forward, what I need is that at least for each of your key performance duties, you need to have at least one goal for that. I hope I'm making sense. Because I know that for each of us, some of us have a whole lot, but for most of us, we may have about 10 areas, or I'm not sure, but our performance evaluation requires us to do 3 to 5. You still have to do the performance evaluation, but when you are working with your immediate supervisor, you need to have your job description, and for all the areas of your job description, I need you to have one goal. Okay? Yes, Dr. Downing, I think you have a comment there.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think it is too much?
For some of us, it will be.
Okay, so that is why this is something you have to work with your immediate supervisor, and I will review these performance evaluations. And so in our review also, we have to be fair, and so all that will be taken into consideration. But my thinking here is that we need to cover all the basics, because the 3 to 5 goals that we set on the performance evaluation does not cover everything. Yes, Dr. Downing?
So, sir, you're talking about moving forward like next year, right? You're not talking about this year, right?
I'm talking about 20.
Because those are already turned in, right? You already have them, right? For this year?
I'm talking about
this past year?
2020, 2021.
Oh, okay. All
2020, 21. And
okay.
Yes, 2020, 21. Okay. Yes, any comments, any discussions? We all know how to set goals. If that is Dr. Downing's job, how to set a goal and all that. That's not what I'm talking about. All I need you to do is that make sure you know how to write a good goal. If you have any issues, you talk to Dr. Downing. But all your key job areas, make sure that at least you have one goal for those areas. Of course, maybe 3 or 5 of them is what you put on the performance evaluation. The one thing I'll have to mention here, Dr. Downing mentioned Ms. Yan. Ms. Yan is a good resource for everybody, especially if you have in your areas of your quantitative goals, you will need data. That is where Ms. Yan comes in, and so that is why I invited her to be on this retreat. So work with her. She can help you to collect your data, so that, and then sometimes she already has the data already. She can give you the data that you need. So make sure you, and always, please, whenever you will have to send data, HT data reports outside the university, make sure that you check with Ms. Yan. Don't send data 50% of something, whatever, externally without checking with Ms. Yan, because we will have to make sure that that data is accurate. Okay, All right. So any questions on goal setting? And the key thing here is that look at all your job description, making sure that you are doing everything that is required of you. All I'm requiring of you is that have one goal for each of those key areas, right? Out of that, on your performance evaluation, you put 3 or 5 as is required by the university's procedures and policies. Okay, now it's 10:30. I think I'm moving on to the calendar. Now,
Dr. Vanderpoor,
yes.
before you go to the calendar, can I say something to everybody? We are a small school, we're small resourced. I encourage us to maybe have a little think tank about, some of the executions that we have to do and how we can streamline them so that we won't be replicating and doing everything in isolation for each activity. And it's design thinking, so to speak, on how things flow into each other and how we can make our jobs much easier. It's stressful when you're getting this from this person, this from this person, this from this. Really, all of it goes along the same track, that we just got to take some time to think about how we can make those things speak to each other and work together. I'm giving you an example. When I was in Kentucky, we had to put in an assessment system, okay? So by participating in those meetings and being on committees in the state, I knew that they were coming out with a process. So I wanted to make sure that when they came out with their process, that our internal process, assessment process, would feed into theirs and would be virtually the same. It saved everybody a lot of work from having to do the internal process and then doing that process and doing the national process when we all the information and data just fed into each other. So when you did one thing, you were covering all your bases. I hope you understand what I'm saying. But I'll be glad if I had 2 or 3 people to kind of work with me to try to look at all of our different deliverables and see how that we can consolidate those in a way that when we're doing things, like when we're doing what Dr. Vanderpoor has just asked us to do, those things feed directly into what your responsibilities are for your area, your assessment plans for your area, that feed into the same thing. You may not use all the information for each one of them, but all the information you need for each one of them will be in one place. And then you extrapolate, the only thing you're doing is extrapolating what you need for each different entity that you're dealing with. It really helps you to get a lot more done in a less stressful environment when you do that. I just wanted to say that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Downing. So just before I go on to the calendar, which of you has retreat for your department? If I can see on the chart, you have retreats for your department. And so those of you, if you don't, I encourage you to have this kind of what is a retreat, kind of an extended kind of a meeting where, and I think maybe you have it in, I don't know when you have it, but summer might be a good time to plan for the coming year. And so also that this, what we are discussing here is not to doesn't stay here, but then you carry it on to your staff. Now, so what do I mean on the agenda by the 2020-21 calendar? And it's about calendar in general and how to look at the calendar going forward. That's what I mean here. Now, the holiday calendar is our favorite calendar here on our campus. Sometimes I get a call and asking me, has the president issued the holiday calendar? And I say, no, I'm not over holiday calendar, so I don't have an answer to that. But, these are some of we have the holiday calendar. Everybody likes that. And of course, the academic calendar that I'm responsible for, and it is online. I work with the academic team, and then we always post it. And then, of course, we've been working on, now we've been trying to have, we've been talking some years now about an administrative calendar that is just adding the business office timelines to the academic calendar. That's what we're calling the administrative calendar. Hopefully, we'll get it going and be more consistent with that. But, and then, of course, we have an events calendar that is managed by Ms. Jackson. But what I want to talk about is your particular position or personal department calendar, right? And let's see, what do I mean by this? Now, because without a calendar, we forget to do stuff, right? For those of you who are in, the example is those of you who are in the Handle Your Business meeting this year. We were excited about what? Summer enrollment, right? We had good numbers, but then nobody was talking about financial clearance, because there is no set date as an institution when an office starts to make sure that we are checking financial clearance. And so was it a week before summer school starts that we realized that only a few students are financially cleared? And so that is important that we have these calendars as to when we do things, so that we'll be able to hold each other responsible and also remind us, and then don't forget that we need to do something. Of course, one of the other things, it helps with onboarding. Now, I don't know about any of you, but when I was hired about 10 years ago here as the associate provost, I was just given a desk, a chair, and a computer. And that's all. I got to figure things out myself. Now, I don't know about Dr. Hirsch. Any of you, when you got onboarded, hear that these are the things that you need, these are the things that happens, or these are the things that you need to do. Most of that is we don't have that. So that's even just a simple calendar. And maybe the next time we'll be talking about what we call operations manual. Now, of course, the calendar is just when you do stuff. Operations calendar will go into how you do stuff. But at least we're starting with when we do stuff. So even if we hire somebody and we give this person knows that I have to do this at this time, I have to do that at that time. Well, some people are lucky because when they are hired, the person that they used to be in that position is still here, and therefore you can always get that information from them. But when you are hired and there's nobody to go to, that can be very difficult. And this can help us. This can help us to solve that problem. So I think now this is the problem here. Can you still see my calendar? No, so if I see my calendar, yes. I think I need to show this. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Dr. Brad, I'm still waiting to hear from you.
They're
Okay.
a little quicker. They're a little quicker on the unmute button than I am.
All right. So this is a good example from CAS, right? And you see the CAS calendar, for example. You see what they take the academic calendar, and then the red is what they put. That's the CAS. So this shows all the things that CAS will be doing. You do this over summer. You share with your staff, so everybody knows when things are due.
Dr. V, we're looking at your slideshow, not a calendar, if that's what you're trying to show us.
Okay, now, Dr. Bad, you are not answering my. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to have to slow Miss Stinson down.
Miss Stinson is paying attention. Now, okay, let me see. Stop sharing. Let me see. Share screen, and there. Okay, somebody has to show me how to. I'm a Teams guy.
No, you're good. You're good now.
Somebody has to show me how to. But you don't have to stop and reshare, right? You should be able to move from one thing to the other. Is that not correct? Who's the Teams guy on the screen? Dr. Hirsch.
Yeah, if you don't want to stop sharing your screen,
Yes.
do click on shared screen, choose your browser, the first option, and the corner. That way you don't have to stop each time.
Cool. That's a lot different from Teams. You share your desktop and then you can do that. So I have to share browser. That is good. All right, that's good. So this is what I'm showing here, and then distance, and now you can see, right?
Yes, yes.
So you see how
Yes.
all this is academic calendar is the one in black, but then CAS then puts in, I think even this blues for faculty information, yes, those are some of the CAS, what they need to do with their time and then the dates, so that everybody knows they didn't give all this information in there on their calendar. Now, so with something like this, you hire a new dean, they know exactly when they have to do things. As I said, the next thing we have to work on for each department or even each position is the operations calendar, which will, the operations manual is how we do stuff. This is the start of when we do stuff. And so I expect every position to have something like this. Not necessarily tied to the academic calendar, but see for the year, once the academic calendar comes out at least a year or a semester ahead, and you can have something as simple as that. Okay, now I can, let me try this. I have this document here that I will, so for example, this is another, I have many of these calendars, but this is another one I have. Look at my fall semester, things I have to do in August. Institutional data report from Miss Yan. I break it down by week 1, students, but this is all the way down. All things I have to do with CAE, reports I have to get from CAS, explore recruiting.
We're not seeing it, Dr. Vanderpool.
Oh, okay, I gotta go back. Did I stop sharing?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I missed the step. Share screen.
When you click on shared screen, it should be already in blue, the very top left where it says screen.
Okay, let's see here. And then I come here and do this.
Yeah, we can see it now. Yep, yeah, you can just
now?
any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to show this quickly because I don't want you to see all the details. Okay, so you see the some of the things: getting institutional data, announce awards, deans, also by posted, things I need to check on, review schedule errors. These are the things I do in August. I go down to week 1, things I do in week 1 of school, week 2, week 3, right? All the way down. November, pre-registration, December, final exams are grade E. So this is it, and then going on to spring semester year round. Okay, I said I'll share it quickly. All right. How are we doing for time? We have about 18 minutes. And then, am I still sharing my screen?
No.
Okay. I think I stopped sharing my screen. Am I share screen? Okay, I'll just end here. Am I sharing my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah, your presentation's up. Your
presentation is up. Cool. All right. So we talked about this and here. All right. So yes, this is one other thing that we talk about quite a bit. In August, September, and then Miss McGee will ask me, when is the board report due? But so to prevent that, and then you just have just a short time, we'll have this. Everybody should know this information, and therefore you don't need to ask me. You incorporate this into your department calendar. So this is something you do every year. Now, the board now meets in the fall, early November. So Miss, if you want Miss Morton's help, Miss Morton may remind you, but I am not going to remind you. But when the time comes, all I need is I need my report. So Miss Morton, board reports can be due first Friday of October is when it's due to my office, right? And then in the spring, it's due the last Friday of March. So you make sure that you incorporate this into your calendar, and then now you're not waiting on me every year It's something that we do every year. And the calendars are things that you do, consistently every month or so. Performance evaluations this year, I did ask that we do it in, I think it was due end of June, by the university's policies and procedures manual. Performance evaluations are due April, May, right? So please have it on your calendar, and I don't have to remind you. So you work towards that. I don't have to tell you to evaluate your staff, all right? Ms. McGee, is that right? Thank you. All right, so these are things we need to, I'm just pointing out a few things, and as you work on your calendar now, and you have questions or key things, let me know. We work together, so we'll build this calendar. All right, and so that going forward, there is no, forgetting to do things, and you can plan it even within your own your calendar so that you can meet these timelines. And of course, this is our first retreat. There's been a lot of transitions, and that's why even this calendar is very important. But now, I hope we're having a very more stable staff in academic affairs. So going forward, we will be having our summer retreat second Friday in June. Ms. McGee, when do you have your retreat?
We had ours, it's normally around the same time, the second week of June.
Okay, all right. So that's some of the things we have as we start doing this. Then also we don't we make sure things don't overlap, right? If we all have our calendars, we share, so then we don't overlap. Okay, all right. So since you have yours, maybe I'll have to move mine. Okay, thank you. So yes, so we set our calendars, maybe every summer we set our calendars for the new year. Okay, now I think this will be my last slide here. And which of you have operations manual for your office? Say Miss McGee, Dr. Downey. So Dr. Downey, okay, you have it for your office, but the CAE, every staff member in CAE have a operations manual.
Excuse me. I guess I should have raised another hand. We do in Office of Sponsored Programs. I've never completed the one for Office of Institutional Plan and Research Assessment, but I do have one, but it's not been approved and everything.
Okay.
And for CAE, we don't have one, I don't believe.
Okay, so that's something we're working on. For now, we're starting with our calendar, our annual calendars, which shows when we do what. The next level we will be doing our operations manual is how we do these things. So this is my last slide. I'll be checking whether we are paying attention. What is our theme for the 2020-21 academic year for academic affairs?
It's great.
Good to great.
Good to great. Okay, so that is what our theme, that is what we had to think about. Everything we're doing, we are moving towards excellence, we're moving towards greatness. Good to great, we talk about the one goal per job, key job function, and this is not in, that could include our performance evaluations. And then we have to get our 2020 academic calendar, as I've explained, and make sure that we create and keep all our documents in Teams. Okay. And I think that's it. 10 minutes. Any questions, comments?
I have one thing. We are using in Office of Institutional Plan Research and Assessment, we use a program called Smart Sheets. I just cut back the usage of it this year because I had more logins than were being used. I really advocate that we use that. We use it in the Office of Sponsored Programs too, and it gives us pop-ups for different reports. That same report that you gave that you showed Dr. Vanderpoor is in that system, and it pops up and tells us when reports are due and things. Thank God, over the last 3 years, we have not been late on a report from Office of Institution Plan, Research, and Assessment. Our sponsored programs, really, in terms of external reporting and so forth. So that's how we do it. We use that program, but it can be used by anybody at the institution. So, you know, if you want to, I advocate that you do your handwritten schedule as Dr. Vanderpoor has instructed. And then if you would like to use that system to help you to keep track of things, it even sends a message to like finance when we have our IPEDS report due that, you know, we put their date in earlier so that we can get the report from them in time to have it. It don't work all the time, but it will now. But in time for us to get the report out. So yeah, it's a good system. My only problem has been because of turnover, having a stable administrator of the system, because I've had lost a few people, but we were doing very well with it. But hopefully I'll get that person back and we'll get back on track. But it's a good system. Even, you know, in her absence now, we have pop-ups. I had a pop-up for a report yesterday that we have to do. And all I do is like check, you know, with Serena and see where we are on the report to make sure that we have it in time so we can read it and get it out. So it's called Smart Thinking. And right now I don't have a lot of logons because I cut out a lot of the logons because we weren't using them, but I can always add them as needed and used. I don't like to pay for things that people aren't using, but we are using it in terms of those two offices.
So, Dr. Downey, is this a kind of a scheduling software?
It is scheduling. It's a project management system.
Project management.
Mm-hmm. And you can upload your documents. You can manage your project. The only thing we really use it for right now, and we should use it as we expanding the use of it, is we put the entire calendar in there, and it tells us. And most of our reports are not. It's not like a designated day, but we know something is coming up due, like in July or in August or something, and it tells us close to that, you know, that period of time, to give us time to prepare that report or do whatever that is coming up. And it works really well, but you know, you have to use it.
Is it a Microsoft? Is it a Microsoft tool?
No, it's not a Microsoft tool.
Microsoft, okay.
It's a tool that we purchased from our Title III program.
All right. So you heard Dr. Downey. That is another tool to help you, you know, to be more efficient. That's what we want. Being efficient with what we do. We have a lot to do, so anything that can make our work easier, let's try to use it. I'm sure Ms. Morton will be calling you about that tool very shortly. Thank you, Ms. Morton.
Yes.
Yes. Any other comments, questions? I'd like definitely to hear your feedback on our first retreat, suggestions, anything that you would like to hear. So
I think it was informative. Thank you for taking that step to bring us together and present the information. Again, I think it was informative, and look forward to others.
yes, thank you, Ms. Stinson. You know, sometimes we do diverse, you know, the things we work on are quite different, but then there is the common things that that brings us together to help us all to move HT forward. So once again, thank you for your time. We're all busy.
Dr. Vanderpoor.
Yes.
If I can just say one more thing, I want to make sure everybody's got on their radar that the compliance certification report is due on September the 8th. So we're getting out of crunch time right now. So documents have to be attached to the report, and they're probably going to be about 3 pages of documents. So if I need something, you've been very responsive. I thank you. Thanks, Dr. Bud, yesterday. Well, when I send you something telling you I need a document, please send that to me so that I can put it in the folders so that it can be uploaded to the report. And also, I want to make sure we have a little time, some time for everybody that to keep the people to can review the actual document. We have it in a template now, but we just had to edit it, so we got to go back and do through the edits now. So September the 30th, September the 8th is when it's due. Our offsite review, the offsite team will review the document in November. I think it's 11th through the 15th, something like that. They'll review the documents, and then they'll send us back a report if they have questions, things they want us to respond to, and then we'll have the time to get those back into them, and then they'll be on site in March 2021. So we have a lot of work to do between now and then to get the compliance report in, to get the 6 weeks later to get the QEP in, and then we have to make sure all of our people and constituents within the university are prepared for that visit, that site visit in March. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day and have a good weekend.
Same to you.
Thanks, Dr. Vanderpoy.
Thank you, Dr. Vanderpoy.
This is good.
Thank you, Dr. Downing.
Thank you, Dr. Miles.
I'll have the recording to everyone after Dr. Vanderpoy takes a look.
Okay.
Thank you.